All right, just popping in here to do a question and answer and maybe a little review of some information that I've stumbled upon that I think is worth looking at. Okay, so I'll just start with that first, actually, and share my screen because I don't know, I think this is a really good way to understand what's actually going on with the vaccine rollout. And also, I don't know how much longer we'll have access to our account. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I want to just kind of take advantage of this while we still can. So I was interested in looking at what the level of keyword searches were for terms like vaccine reaction or vaccine death because of what's going on. And if we go back to the entire history of Google Trends, this is 2004 to present. I think we had the H1N1 situation back in, was it 2009? It was at the pig flu. And there was a big bump back then when also they rolled out vaccines suddenly that were obviously experimental. And look at what's going on right now, the sheer volume. Okay, this is United States, but let's look at the world. And we're scaling up. Now, these are people that are obviously looking into this question, are the vaccines causing deaths? And this is something that if you go to the mainstream, you're not going to see very much of anything when it comes to that topic. So yeah, I just saw myself here. I guess you saw that too. Okay, so anyway, I think that's a really important data point because what I've been doing throughout the past few years is going on Google search and then looking to see what they're suggesting people think. It's called an auto completion. And it is actually considered by Google not so much a suggestion as is it a prediction. So if they're predicting what people are searching for, they used to write in things like anti-vaxxers are murderers. And we've reported on that on GreenMedInfo. And thankfully, since those reports, they've taken those auto completion phrases away. Recently, I also did one on anti-maskers are. Actually, let me just show you to see I'll show you what's going on right now. Okay, this is important because see, Google's actually brainwashing people. Okay, it's mind control, and it's a very well-known technique that works. So here's Google, and previously, if you wrote in anti-masker, as if there is such a thing as an anti-masker, what does that mean? Okay, so previously, there were a number of results saying they were murderers, they were dangerous, they're psychopaths. I reported on this maybe a month ago. Why are they continually removing these when being held accountable? And of course, I've done a whole series of articles on, on natural medicine is fake, it's dangerous, or supplements are dangerous, chiropractors are quacks. That's like they have been planting these seeds in people at the most vulnerable moment when they're searching on Google's, when someone is like, you know what, I don't know if something is true. So I'm going to go search. And instead of letting you find an organic result, which used to be if you were typing in, let's say, turmeric research, well, maybe they would show you the most extensive research database on the internet on GreenMedInfo. They used to be on page 1. Now you can't find it because they eradicated in 2019 most natural health sites from Google search results in the so-called Great Google Digital Book Burn of 2019. So obviously that was concerning, and maybe it was a run-up to what we're seeing now, where it's more than just censorship. They're going out, going for the jugular. They're putting people on hit lists. Mercola just published in his newsletter today that basically the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which is highly Orwellian, right? That they're literally publishing a hit list of so-called 10 top anti-vaxxers, myself, my wife, Mercola, Tenpenny. There's actually 11 people on the list, by the way. So someone there didn't count, or maybe they're an intern. And they're publishing this for the world to see with red lines over the first 3, like Bobby, that have been deleted. They've been taken out. That's going a little further, don't you think? Like, I think censorship is one thing, but when you start publishing lists of people that need to be deleted, that starts to look a lot like genocide. And that's something we've talked about before. The 10 well-trodden steps to genocide, which start with things like objectification, vilification, identifying a group of individuals as viruses or disease-carrying vermin, as they once did the Jews. Now they're doing that with, quote, anti-vaxxers or anti-maskers, as we're dirty. In the new bioapartheid system, biosegregation, certain groups of people that don't consent to these rituals, because they're not evidence-based, they're rituals, then they will be isolated, they will be given, they will basically be kept from participating in society. So I think that's interesting. So again, when you're looking at the sheer volume of searches, it's a pretty important indication that there are a lot of people that are questioning and or experiencing reactions that are obviously happening now, which they're covering up. So I'll second DuckDuckGo. Yeah, I get it. Listen, guys, the problem is far worse than I would even like to admit, because the hardware on our devices, the chips themselves, have been designed with backdoors. Okay, and then the operating systems have backdoors. We knew this when Microsoft was in its early iterations. There was an NSA backdoor key. So we know that they worked with the NSA to open up all your private information, and nothing has changed since then. And it speaks to the military origins of the internet and the technologies that we use today, which is why there's a whole movement out there, which I recently discovered, which is open source CPUs and open source hardware, which basically enables anyone to look at the code and the engineering, hackers and good people alike, and keep on iterating. It's a natural, evolutionary, if you will, pressure to make a better product. It's like WordPress, right? It's the basis for most websites on the planet. It's open source. So anyone can go in and look, and they can go ahead and change and make it better. Agreement.info is Drupal, and that's also open source, which is awesome. That enabled us to customize it to the point where it could do really cool stuff for people looking for research. And the open source movement, check this out. Let's say you're Bill Gates at Microsoft, and you want to own the operating systems to pretty much everyone on the planet and get them hooked to an obsolete, manufactured obsolete product that constantly has exploits, viruses, right? Remember that come, that you need new updates for, or new viral programs to defend you, like McAfee antiviral software. Kind of get the thinking? Well, guess what? That's the exact same thinking that was, is behind the mRNA platforms, the software of life, which is the new vaccines you're seeing rolled out. And they're going to continue to generate new variants. And they're going to continue to tell you, sorry, you need your upgrade, just like the annual flu vaccine. Well, now you're going to have the COVID-19, COVID-20. And so those who have submitted to this agenda, obviously, are going to be encouraged to continue to upgrade their software, because we are just biomachines, and, the DNA in our body is just like, code. And it's that simple, right? No, 2005 is when the whole Ponzi scheme of that viewpoint was completely revealed to be garbage. And they realized there's not enough protein coding genes in the human genome to account for the proteins in a single cell. Approximately 100,000 distinct proteins. There's got to be at least 100,000 distinct protein coding genes, right? It's the blueprint. Nope, 20,000, just like an earthworm. Can't account for the complexity of life through those codes. Now, RNAs are different. 98% of the non-coding genome, the dark matter of the human genome, is it's primarily RNAs. And that's what they're now manipulating in order to try to control life and you ultimately. So yeah, quantum computers. Are you serious? Here, let's see this question. I love questions like this. Are you serious? You just compared treatment of yourself and other anti-vaccine people to the Holocaust. Well, I don't know if this is a serious question or complaint, or if this is a real person, but how about we interviewed Vera Shiraz, who's a Holocaust survivor, on this topic, Leela? Maybe take a look at our interview on Stand for Health Freedom, because she verbatim has stated that what she has seen thus far is exactly what she witnessed in Nazi Germany. and that there are atrocities happening and will continue to happen if we do not draw parallels, right? Because if we don't understand history, it repeats itself. So are you offended by the fact that I drew a parallel between this? Because in Israel right now, this is the archetypal expression of the Nazi agenda, right? Is that they have vaccine passports. Do you remember when you needed Aryan passports to determine your racial purity, or you couldn't move amongst society and or would end up in a cattle car going off to, a Holocaust camp, concentration camp? Do you see any parallels there, or is it just me? Because your comment is as triggering to me probably as it is to you. Only I would hesitate to use 3 exclamation points to make my point. It's kind of self-defeating. So yes, I absolutely am serious, and we have written about it. I've talked about it, and it is actually well established. In fact, just so you know, Hitler himself described himself as the Robert Koch of politics, okay? The author of germ theory. And he said the Jews are a virus that need to be exterminated for the purity of the people, for the common good. Does this sound familiar to you at all? Because who is being identified as a lethal threat to those who get the vaccine? Those who don't get the vaccine. Those are the individuals that are being identified, and who, by the way, are also going to be by default classified as high risk because they're not getting the quote magical vaccine, which is why the CDC already published on their website about green zones, which are concentration camps, right? Literally, that have high risk COVID populations that will be put in there, okay? And I'm assuming especially those who don't get the vaccine, that's literally on their website. So yes, if you're a troll, you're a real person, I highly encourage you to look deeper into this. And thank you for mentioning the Nuremberg Code. There's another great parallel, because it was the Nuremberg trials and what came from that established that experimenting on humans without informed consent is a violation of human rights. And now we are protected by medical ethical codes that are based on not trying to repeat that terrible moment in history, and that are being violated right now. So there's another very direct line to Nazi history, the Holocaust, and what's happening right now. And if you go deeper down that rabbit hole, you'll find that in the book Project Paperclip, which you should look up, it's a really good book, it goes into the history of the vaccine experiments that were performed on Jews in these camps, and that those very doctors, some of them after the Nuremberg trial, were brought over to the United States and put in positions of great power through a now declassified program called Project Paperclip. So yes, literally Nazi scientists were instrumental in helping to architect our medical system and health policy in this country. And those are war criminals that literally informed our principles and practices, the way we do medicine. So yes, absolutely, there's a connection. And I highly encourage you to watch closely what's happening in Israel, because vaccine passports, this is the new medical apartheid. This is the new biosegregation. And this is what they want to roll out throughout the world. And so it's really important you understand this if you are actually a human being, or not a sock puppet or whatever they call you guys. Okay. Yeah, this book is really amazing. Okay. Yeah, because I went through the book, I even searched for the vaccine portion, documenting what they did to these Jews. And it was really terrifying to realize that those very individuals were ferried over here, put in positions of power, both in corporations and government institutions, and carried forward their legacy. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's important for people who don't know about what's going on in Israel to really look at that. We recently had discussion with Vera Shiraz again, and it's amazing. This woman is helping us understand that what is happening in her home country is very similar to what happened in Germany. And this is a model for the rest of the world unless we continue to exercise our right to decline a experimental vaccine. We still have that right in this country, and they're not even trying to force it because they understand that if they tried to do that right now, it would become even clearer what the agenda is. So instead, they're coercing people. They're creating this false scarcity. They're trying to make it seem like this is the best thing that could ever happen. People are fighting to get this vaccine. And unfortunately, those of us who know better, who know that you can't justify the safety and effectiveness of an experimental vaccine. You cannot justify that because you need literally a decade or more to understand what the long-term health consequences are of a, quote, intervention. And this is the first human mRNA vaccine ever administered. So, wow, we could go on about that. But that's kind of a dark topic, and that wasn't really the focus that I wanted to put here. So, okay, do we have any questions? I mean, recently, it's been clear that the powers that be are looking to target us in a specific way and censor us. And at this point, I think the best thing you can do is to stand by, be on our Telegram channel. I'll put a link in here. Obviously, that's one of the best ways to stay in touch because they don't interfere with our reach. Our Facebook page, which has over 500,000 followers, has zero reach at this point. So it's pretty much, might as well be deleted. So even though we are streaming right now. So if you aren't on Telegram, it's a good idea because it's not like WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook where they're all merged and there's constant data capture. And basically what we've seen in places like Australia is that someone posting on Facebook, they're going to be at a protest and they're having literally police knocking at their door. I mean, they're basically now using these platforms as a means to enforce executive orders that violate your constitutional rights. And so that's really scary. And yet, yeah, even now I'm using the platform. So ultimately we're consenting, aren't we, to that risky situation. So let's see. Yeah. Well, I would say there's more you can do. I do really appreciate what you're saying, though. I do think this is a time for us all to focus on taking care of ourselves on all levels. Obviously, that's always been the advocacy at Green Med Info, is let's just take care of our body. Let's make sure we treat it the best we can. Here's the information showing you natural is the way to go in 99% of the cases. Yes, allopathic medicine can work miracles in emergency/wartime situations. But when it comes to taking care of our bodies, let's do it through food. Let's do it through intentional movement, mindset, community, immunity, and community. It's the same thing, honestly. But then also let's stand up and still take advantage of the freedoms we do have. Because as of right now, we still have an internet. We still can join, Stand for Health Freedom is a great example. It's free to use. I mean, we have campaigns in over 14 states now and 2 countries because we opened up Canada, which really needs help right now. So if you're Canadian, make sure you get on the email list and use the actions we put together. The actions include being able to stand up for your right to choose whether you want to wear a mask or not. Choose whether COVID-19 vaccines are going to be required for employment. Choose to, for example, challenge the ruling in the District of Columbia that your parental rights are null and void, and your 11-year-old or younger can choose to vaccinate themselves and hide that from their parents. That's literally being legislated right now. So Stand for Health Freedom enables you to, within 2 clicks, look up your local official that you have elected and have them understand the bullet points we put together that are referenced. Okay, so the mask campaign, which has been sent 300,000 emails so far, it's definitely had an impact, has 71 citations, most of which are scientific references. So there is plenty of support here now for you to go out there very easily and message in a very strong, compassionate way. This is nonpartisan. This is not about a political affiliation. It encompasses anyone who's human, who's a parent, who cares about basic health, can get behind this platform. And by the way, we're a 501c4. So let's say Ron Paul decides he wants to run independent. We can get behind him legally. So that's actually exciting to me. Like anyone in the future that you really believe is not a political player, but represents the people, we can get behind. We're at 250,000 advocates. We're only 1 year into this, just based on organic word of mouth. Imagine what we can do by the end of 2021 when we have over 1 million people that are advocates on our platform. We work closely with NVSC. We partner with other organizations. We support them and vice versa. So we are trying to unify this movement simply by taking the egos and logos out of it. We want you to be the hero in this. We took the barriers of entry away. It's super easy to use. This one platform costs over $100,000 a year just for us to manage, and it's all being done through the users themselves donating. So there's no primary funders, there's no advertisers. It's just a grassroots opportunity for us all. And in this day and age, when all it takes is a single agent provocateur, contaminating an event, or all these different factions being funded by organizations that actually do not support health freedom, but are making it look like that, then we need this kind of authenticity. So I highly suggest that you feel empowered, because there is a lot you can do. Like the thing is Agreement Info, to a certain degree, is a bit of a drag, because I could be reporting, and I have been, all day about what's going on in terms of the dark agenda descending. And without a call to action or solution, we all feel disempowered. And I want people to know that, yes, you can be an adult like I'm trying every day to be, and just accept the just bold-faced fact that we are being threatened on the most existential level that our generation has ever seen, that our freedoms, our bodily integrity, being threatened with being penetrated literally with a potentially deadly intervention. This is horrifying. So if we were just focusing on that and not giving you a solution, I would probably be adding to more dis-ease and suffering on this planet than actual help. And that is one reason why Stand for Health Freedom, for me personally, is a perfect balance to what I do. If I didn't have that, I probably would not even do as much with Agreement Info, because too many people get triggered. It's too much overwhelmed. They just can't handle it anymore. And I don't blame them, because they're being fire hose propaganda 24/7 to make you afraid. And then of course, when we tell you, yeah, you actually should be afraid, and here's the agenda, that doesn't often help you either, does it? So we're trying, but listen, this is hopeful to me. This is what's going to get us through this. We'll look back and realize that the forces of darkness, if you will, they just weren't strong enough, because it only takes a single little candle to light an entire dark room. That's a great metaphor, and it's true. This is physics. That's actually true. And it's true for you and your community and your family. Just take that step. Go ahead. Here, I'll post it again. Go to Stand for Health Freedom. Be on our list. We'll send you our next important update, which, by the way, will absolutely have to do with vaccine passports for our triggered troll or genuine person that didn't know better to be so offended that I would even draw a comparison with Nazi history and medicine in this country today and what's happening. How could I possibly dare do that? Good Lord. I'm sorry. I'm finding myself being intolerant of her intolerance, which is obviously not the right way to go. All right, what else do we have here? Any good questions, comments? I like this one. Yeah, right? Ron Paul is 7 years older than Biden, 100 times sharper. Well, he's also an actual human, meaning what they're doing with Biden and the way that they are, handling him and or using all kinds of technology to enhance or edit. We live in a world where deep fakes absolutely are so convincing that you do not know anymore who's actually human. So that is unfortunately part of the problem we're facing. Not to say that Biden is some kind of cyborg, but clearly you can see the way they're handling and editing him. He might as well be one, right? Okay. So, oh my. Just paid a troll, I'm sure. Well, how are we doing? Well, hopefully this is a legitimate question. Well, I would say, like most people out there, we're doing about the best we can with what we have to work with, which is that many of us have found within the window of this experience that we have to do our own everything. And that is a good thing. So I'm absolutely seeing this as an opportunity this past year for us all to become better versions of ourselves. And that's what I'm hoping you're doing out there, Brian. And I thank you for the question. Our relationship has gotten stronger because we are more committed than ever to, again, just working on our stuff and not blaming the world so much. So that pretty much everyone out there, including myself during this event, it was very hard not to want to blame the powers that be. There's so many reasons you can look at yourself as a victim or oppressed right now. And that is absolutely part of what they want. They want you to feel disoriented. They want to energize the dialectic. And that is the ultimate agenda. Because when you do that, the public is absolutely overwhelmed and you become obedient. You go to what, survival mechanism, So, and I think another part of this is the agenda was to destroy the economic substrate of our freedom, to attack every single one of us through diluting our purchasing power through hyperinflation. I see that that's clearly happened, and virtually no one's talking about that as part of the agenda. How do we go from a balance sheet with the Fed where, what was it, 800 billion during QE1 2009 when they bailed the banks too big to fail out? And that was such a big deal when people realized that the everyday homeowner and Main Street were just being basically kicked under the bus. And then $800 billion, which at the time was a lot, was just being given to big banks. And then there was, theoretically, this was somewhat organic initially. There was the Occupy movement until literally globalist money ended up funding these very seemingly progressive movements and co-opting them. And then we're here now, and we have how many was it? $7 trillion was printed in the past year, something insane like that. And so obviously that's unlegislated tax on every single dollar or asset denominated in dollars, like stocks, for example, that basically diluted all of that value. And how many tens of millions of jobs were completely eliminated? So they pumped up the stock markets to make it look like, oh, the economy's fine. They can justify their political narrative, while so many people are now suffering. Now, I don't want to get into the narrative of victimhood, because I do think it's an opportunity for us to return to what's most important. So, Bryant, you asked how we're doing. Well, we decided to invest time and energy into chickens. We have just enough property, like our backyard is just enough where we can have a hen house, and we have 8 chickens. And we went to mypetchicken.com, incredible little company, and we went ahead and we got our 8 little baby chicks, and they stayed in our garage in very special, sort of setting for the first, 5 months, and they're about a month away from laying eggs. And these are the most joyous little creatures I've ever met. We have cats, no comparison. Chickens are overjoyed at being alive when they can go ahead and just wander around and peck away. That's exciting. And talk about homeschooling and all the things you learn when you connect back into nature. That is radical. That's what we're talking about here. And by the way, we buy a lot of eggs for our family, like 4 daughters total. Like, so when you're doing this kind of vertically integrated stuff, the benefits are so profound. It's so multidimensional. I mean, I look at them and I'm literally happier in my day. And yeah, there's chores, which is good, because what chores do kids have these days, or adults? It gets you in a rhythm. And that's something that's going to feed us. And we've not even had the eggs yet, because it's going to take another month. Or our garden, when we took 4 months to just grow a handful of shishito peppers, and then we cooked them. Oh my God, you treat these things so preciously, and then the nutritional content and the vibration you get from it, this is not new agey BS. This is the truth. So this is the other direction, and this would not have happened if it were not for COVID-19, right? This would not have happened if they weren't trying so hard to attack our dependencies. So the point is sovereignty. The point is maintaining and developing independence from the systems that we have all consented to. So every single one of us has signed the terms and disclosure agreement on these platforms we're using. And they literally probably on some symbolic level promise we give them, our firstborn. I mean, it's that bad. There's so many great documentaries now on what this is all about. And so we can't complain anymore, right? We have to create our own platforms. And that's exactly what I'm involving myself in. Like Cordal, go to cordal.org. I'm so excited by this project. It is literally unstoppable. It's owned by no one. It's just now part of the new commons. It's just code like the blockchain that Bitcoin's based on. It's another blockchain like it, but different. And it is now run by 1,000 independent people throughout the world, many of whom are anonymous. You don't have to let people know. And they're creating the new internet. And the new internet will not censor you. It will give you the opportunity to share information and value without being surveilled. And actually, Mercola today, as I mentioned earlier, he echoed a lot of what I'm working on right now, which is, yes, we're being digitally, there's hit lists out for us digitally. They're trying to take us out. And we're working simultaneously. I've been in talks with Joe now for over 2 years, actually, on an alternative platform, which is what my focus is it not being owned by anyone. I literally want it to be not even owned by a nonprofit. I want it to just exist out there in a commons area, because there's no commons left on the planet, right? You can't go to any square inch of this planet and it's not owned by someone or some nation state. So the new layer, so I was a student of philosophy and I followed the work of Teilhard de Chardin, and he wrote a book or several books. And one of the things he did was look at the course of evolution of the planet, not just in terms of geological, biological, but through what he called the noosphere. So you have the biosphere, then you have the mind sphere, and how there's like this teleogenesis or this convergence point that's reached where you reach new layers of evolution. And in his model, individuals on this planet, eventually there'd be so many of us that there would be a kind of a compression. There's less space. We're all up in each other's stuff. So there's an involution that happens. You go inside because the external world is now being controlled and crystallized out. And then that leads us to a mega point, a Christogenesis, because he was a priest as well, where the heart kind of evolves and there's this like beautiful communal layer. So before you get to that point, or maybe while you get to that point, you do need a technological layer that isn't owned by DARPA, server farms in DARPA, or Amazon Web Servers, which owns 40% of the web servicing in the planet. Because those are choke points of privatization, centralization, control, and they can take you or something out just in an instant. So what if there's an internet that is run literally by all of us through any device we use, through a mesh network, which is exactly what Cordal does and will do, because you can use satellite, you can use existing cell phone signals throughout the world, you can run it off solar power. It's like completely independent. It's like a mycelium. That is what's emerging. And that's totally the new infrastructure we need. It's what Bitcoin is doing to conventional finance. It's an extinction level event. It's stateless. No government can control Bitcoin. That is huge, because what gives currencies power is the monopoly of violence of particular nation states along a hierarchy of who has more power. So that is how it works, right? Dollar hegemony now means the US is the global empire like Rome was, and we have the most guns and most power, and we can take anyone out that threatens that. And in fact, when they try, let's say they try dumping US treasuries or dollars as a reserve, and then we go invade them, a month later. This is what happened apparently in, Iran, Iraq, Libya. I mean, it's part of just the way history works at this point. So what's happening is with Bitcoin taking on the role of a global reserve, store of value, or collateral layer for the financial system, that is a type of globalism that no one ever anticipated, okay? The New World Order, the powers that be, did not anticipate this unless, of course, you subscribe to the narrative that Bitcoin was a CIA op and still is, and that they're planning on eventually re-co-opting it or de-encrypting it with quantum computing that can unravel the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. It's possible, but the good news is Quordle has already been developed so that if the SHA-256 algorithm gets de-encrypted, they can auto-update with a new one. So you see how these systems evolve, and there's all these unintended effects and things that can happen. So that's exciting. So that's where I've shifted my focus. You know, when we started talking about the vaccines, I started getting kind of upset, obviously. I mean, how can you not? But it's because we have solutions. Like Stand for Health Freedom is a solution. Certain cryptocurrencies are solutions. And the Web 3.0 project to decentralize the web is the solution to the global big tech takeover, which is what's happening right now before your eyes. We saw a sitting president be deplatformed in real time, including even the White House account he was using, because they wanted to shut him down and his First Amendment rights. And that's amazing to have watched that. I didn't even get deplatformed before the president. Give me a break. I mean, so how about having a platform you can't get deplatformed from? Well, that's what Quordle is. And there are other attempts to do this. Okay, so example, if you have a domain name server URL like greenmetinfo.com or coinbase.com, the government can seize it. Okay, any of these sites can be seized because they're centralized. There's a choke point. But if you have a name registration on a blockchain that's not owned or controlled by anyone, and we decide that that's the new location for our content, because Quordle is designed to work like the Interplanetary File System project, which is to host the internet decentralized, well, then there's no one can seize it. No one can take you out. And so that is what we need. Or let's say you like my content on a project like Quordle. Instead of spending 13 years developing a page of organic following of over 500,000, those likes then now are equal to 0, and all the data was captured and now may be used against you or I. The new platform would collect the likes and shares, and that would convert to increased leveling of the voting system. So I would have a vote that you're basically voting that I'm credible and an elder on this platform, so that then I have more say in how that platform develops. And that's the government system they're developing. So this is an active attempt to write in code the new world we want to live in. You know, the difference, of course, is with Bitcoin, the more power you have in your miners, the more Bitcoin you can create or transaction fees you can get. And so the more power, let's say a billionaire comes in, they can, or the Chinese who own most of the miners, they are making most of the money. So that's not fair. I mean, right? That doesn't seem fair. The more money you have, the more you get. And Ethereum does this proof of stake, which is the more coins you have, the more voting power you have. That's not fair. That's not better. That's worse. So Quordle does it differently, which is the more time you put in, the more you participate on equal footing with everyone else in running a node, which is relatively low wattage, like 5 watts versus 1,500 for a Bitcoin miner, then you are participating in creating the network, which then makes possible the functionality that already exists there, which is you can trade between chains. So you have a Litecoin and you want to buy a Quart, then it's a direct trade without a middleman. Or you want to send information through QChat, it's live right now. No one can go in there and spy on you. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I don't think there's another example. I don't believe Signal does that. I think that's actually an urban myth. So that's revolutionary. And that's happening right now, guys. This was the Genesis block happened in, what was it? June 7th for Quordle. And now it's live. There's 1,000 people running nodes around the world. That's only 1/10 of the number of nodes that Bitcoin is running. That is a massive accomplishment. And you can join right now. You can go to Quordle.org. I was going to write that. Quordle.org. Download the installer for the Quordle core and UI. And right now I'm running it. I'm literally running it. It's using some of my CPU resources. So I'm running a node so others can transact and communicate on this platform. So I'm one of maybe 1,000 nodes on the planet making possible the new web. This is Web 3.0, controlled by nobody, owned by nobody. I mean, yes, there's some voting control by the developers, but that becomes more and more, sort of distributed out by the users over time. So that's exciting. And you see the difference in talking about this or new technologies that are going to liberate humanity versus talking about forced vaccination or the weaponization of the blockchain, which of course Alison McDowell has done such a great job of explaining to us. There's so much light, there's so much beauty. And that's what incarnation on this plane means, right? You get to choose either hell or heaven. There's choice here. We are consenting or we're withdrawing consent. You know, we're creating or we're deciding to pretend like we don't participate on that level. And that's exciting. Let's see. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Mitch, because it is the frontier and it takes effort and there's a learning curve because there's no one there to help you but people who want to help. There's no customer service, there's no budget. The market cap of the entire project is like $1 million, which is obscene given Ethereum is like, I don't know how many billion, and it's actually garbage on some level. Really is, ultimately. You know, they awarded themselves billions of dollars of coins initially, like some kind of corporation would do, and that's not what Cordal did. None of the founders, 7 years of development, none of the founders got a single coin. They had to participate like anyone else over the axis of time to get a percentage of the coin that's minted. So, and that is really revolutionary. And that's actually Bitcoin's whole inspiration was to create the people's money, but it got centralized into the miners. And then of course, Wall Street 2.0, there's literally $1 trillion of fiat that has flowed into Bitcoin. And it's exciting because it is the people's money and it is really a revolution, but it has its limitations. So that's blockchain 1.0. And by the way, blockchain applies to 1,000 other domains. So Bitcoin is just the financial application of this, which is revolutionary, of course. But you could look at the triple entry bookkeeping application, which would completely revolutionize all accounting, rendering accounting transparent finally. So the need for auditing and trusting a third-party auditor would be eliminated because the blockchain will show the transactions. That one thing alone is going to revolutionize the world. And look at what it will do for voting. Can you imagine, after what we just saw in this election, that you will be able to transparently verify that a vote actually occurred and it was counted correctly? That is so revolutionary. I mean, it's beyond. I mean, the thinking about this beyond. Look at Wikipedia, you know, or CIApedia, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a memory hole. It's Orwellian. They go in there and they pretty much character assassinate people, and then they pretty much edit out the truth, and there's no accountability. But look at projects like Everpedia that use a blockchain where there's a permanent, immutable record of what's happened. Because that's the beauty of blockchain. It's the truth machine. It's an immutable record that has a public component so you can verify that something actually happened. Because what are they doing with censorship and changing all the facts of the internet? They're constantly trying to steal the soul of the world, I mean, of history. They're trying to change the truth. You know, that's what's going on. So the blockchain solves that, guys. Look at LBRY, LBRLY. That's a blockchain-based alternative to YouTube. In fact, all our videos are there because they kept censoring our videos and threatening to delete our channel. Well, they may stop doing this actually as much because they recognize that everyone's going to LBRY. It's better than BitChute. BitChute's a little bit centralized, honestly. BitChute's great. It's an alternative, but LBRY is going to give us a blockchain-based alternative that is going to be literally a permanent record of history for the first time. Like, this is so revolutionary. Not to say that there isn't some spiritual correlate to that. They sometimes call it the Akashic record. I do think that that exists. When you die, your soul goes to the other dimension. You know, call it God, call it whatever you want. The in-between, there is a truth machine. All of your actions are recorded. That's true. That's what karma is predicated on, you know, and dharma and all these things that, you know, spiritually you can talk about. So the blockchain is a secular equivalent or mirror to that. So let's not get all hung up on Bitcoin mania and like making all this money or just preserving your wealth. Let's look at what this technology actually does, which is to revolutionize the world and provide an infrastructure that is co-created by the people, that the architects of the agendas you're seeing unfold around us could not control. A Pandora's box was opened, and we have an opportunity here that is so beautiful that it gives me hope and inspiration and energy every single moment I think about it. So that's one reason why I'm sharing this with you, because I'm just super excited about it. And I invested in Cordal. I donated to them, the founders. I just gave them some resources. They didn't have a Mac computer to even do an installer. I want this project to exist. I want it to benefit humanity, and that's what you do. You give, and then you receive, because that's part of the project. Is that the project you mint your own coin, so then you can produce money literally, because Court is transferable into fiat. You can turn it into Litecoin and then into dollars. So you can literally create money with this platform right now, which is crazy. But you have to be sponsored by an original founder, because they set it up so that you couldn't just scale or game the system, like set up a server farm and sponsor yourself and then just generate all this coin. They wanted to grow organically and through human trust. And that is why I love this project. So definitely check it out. I did a few interviews on my YouTube channel on it. The first one is probably the most exciting, I think, on the decentralized Web 3.0. It's with Jason Crow and Mike Winner, two co-founders. There's like over a dozen co-founders of this thing, most who are anonymous, because it was a collaborative venture, without egos involved. So that's kind of freaking awesome. Okay, well, let's go back to some of this. Just don't say how to spell it. You don't say how to spell it. Oh, sorry. It's www.QORTAL.org. Sorry. Sound Canadian. Sorry. I have a lot of Canadian friends, actually, which, oh my Lord, are they ever facing a dark nightmare going on right now? But they're such good people. I've so many good Canadians in my life. Interesting. I work with mostly elderly people. They keep asking me if I have the jab, and I say I'm not old enough yet. Not sure how I'm going to handle this in the future. Well, you know what? You're not alone. I'm shocked to a degree, a number of people I know, of how many people have taken this vaccine. I mean, it's really amazing. So, and they think they're protected, and now by implication, of course, they think you're not, or more of a danger to them. So there's a whole psyop layered into this as well. So we're going to have to work together on how to deal with this conversation. I think compassion is, of course, always going to be the foundation for navigating these sorts of conversations. Defensiveness is pretty much the opposite of that, and aggressiveness. So compassion is understanding, wow, they didn't necessarily know the risks, and thank God they're still in one piece. And who knows what will happen in the future, because this is totally untested territory. It's experimental, okay? Post-marketing surveillance is what's supposed to figure out how much harm there is, which is an absurd model to employ if you really care about people. But so compassion, and when it comes to the risks, you can speak to them, because there's plenty of research. First of all, I would go to the primary layer, which is number one. PCR tests do not identify viruses, not replication competent viruses. They can identify nucleic acid sequences, some of which have been described as viral, which are also found within exosomes and within the DNA of your cells. So it's virtually impossible to distinguish. And so what I like to explain to people, because Kary Mullis himself pretty much made this clear, you cannot identify viruses or whether someone is infectious through PCR. It doesn't work for that. He called out Fauci with the whole HIV causes AIDS debacle. In video, you can see Mullis talk about this. So this is just the second iteration of the same problem, which is people are using PCR to test for viruses when it's not capable of distinguishing them from background nucleic acid. So instead of it finding a needle in a haystack, which is what people think it does, it creates a haystack out of a needle by increasing the cycles that are run. You will find anything, you'll amplify anything you're looking for. So the primer segments, you're going to eventually find them and give a false positive. So it is absolutely obscene that they're using these tests and claiming that they somehow are going to confirm that a, quote, case of COVID has been identified. And then on top of that, of course, you may know this, the World Health Organization early in 2020 changed the emergency ICD code for certifying people dead from COVID So you didn't have to actually test for virus. You didn't even have to test. You just had to have suspicion they had COVID, and you could write them dead from COVID. So that's exactly what happened. That's what's happening now. That's why they disappeared the flu and they renamed it COVID. That's what they did. And everyone knows that who's looked at the data. And so that's why we ran the panel called CDC Data Disaster, where we had 10 panelists, including doctors, PhDs, senator, lawyers that have sued the FDA for this sort of stuff, and CDC. And here you go. It's all there. It's a massive document with tons of references showing that they broke federal laws in order to reclassify. After 17 years of following the same exact process, they decided they were going to make it possible to classify people dead from COVID without any proof at all. You did zero proof. You just needed medical opinion, suspicion of infection. This is what happened. That's why people call it the case-demic. So if we don't go back down the rabbit hole of the PSYOP at the beginning and start trying to convince people why the vaccine itself doesn't make sense, it's not really going to have the same impact. But that's how far people have gone and drank the Kool-Aid, and how far this has gone that you can't even barely talk about what actually happened anymore without being, again, put on a digital hit list. Sorry to say. Sorry, I don't know why. Let me see new comments. Yeah, so, we live in that time of one of the darkest times in history and one of the lightest times in history. But that's actually presumptuous. If you go back in time, go to World War II, World War I, the Middle Ages, any period in history, go back to the last cataclysm, this is a joke what we're living through in terms of, how it is absolutely not as challenging as it used to be, and how many tools we have at our disposal. The fact that the internet exists is insanely benefic. It's an insane opportunity for us to create a new world that we want to live in. So whining about how bad things are or focusing exclusively on what's wrong is certainly not going to be the solution either. In fact, you're going to end up turning yourself sick, which I'm sure many of us did in this window. How could you not? It just was unbelievable that they accomplished what was effectively an international coup straight out of Harry Potter. I mean, this narrative and what happened. Literally, oh, by the way, everyone needs to just stop everything and give up all their rights and shut down your businesses and pretend like you're sick when you're healthy, and that you could be a deadly vector of disease to everyone on the planet just by simply breathing without a mask on or a double mask and walking outside your house. This is never going to sound okay or normal to people who are even somewhat awake. But I think that the trauma that people have within them is so profound that you can't even touch sanity anymore half the time. I mean, half the people in our lives are wearing masks or they're vaccinated. So, it's really amazing to watch this happen. That said, you can surround yourself with people that share your values. You can focus on identify your gift and develop it and share it. That's the economy of the future. It's both an actual economy, because all value comes from this. All value, all money comes from this. It's your productive skills, your gifts. That's what it's about. The unit of exchange can be anything. It could be an Ithaca dollar, it could be Bitcoin, it could be Quart, it could be a napkin. The reality, though, what really has value, beyond technological application, things like gold has some value, but what has value is your gifts, is that you might listen really well, you might do Reiki, you might be a good handyman, you might be a speaker, you might be a writer. I mean, you might be good at raising chickens. I mean, these are real skills. Cook, farm, massage, babysit. I mean, these are real skills. This is the real economy that is spiritual, that feeds you and the other. And when you share it, it's the most deeply ingrained human response, because we are fundamentally good, compassionate beings, to want to give back. That is what has been coming from this, because the fiat system that has controlled us for so long, that continues to be the source of enslavement on all levels, is dying. It's just dying. So, if we don't experience a Venezuela-like event with our currency in the next 5 to 10 years, I'll be shocked. I mean, it's happening now. I mean, the dollar is being debased, but we have some time here to develop our skills. Which, by the way, when you identify your gift, you're healing pretty much everything, because that is fundamentally what we're here for. We are spiritual beings having a human, Kali Yuga, gulag-like experience at times. But the reality is that that's what we are. When we die, we're gonna remember that. We're gonna see that. That's why Walt Whitman said death is far more beautiful than anything we could imagine. So ultimately, I'm not that concerned about deaths, but I am concerned about us not living up to our highest gifts, because that's when you're on your deathbed or when you're looking back and judging your life. It's that's going to be the most painful. It's like, did you love well? Did you really share the gifts that you came here on this plane to share? That is a beautiful thing, and when you do that, you develop community. So we are going to adhere, we're going to attract those who share our values. That's just what's going to happen. They may not be your present partner, they may not be your family, they may not be your coworkers. You're going to find completely different community. And you know how easy it is these days? You look around, who's not got a mask on? Well, that's usually a good sign. That person probably shares a good number of values, and they have an intuitive sense that their body is not a weapon, and that they should be able to walk the land as a free human, and you want to hang with that, versus the other folks who, beyond the grotesque, shocking gaslighting experience, the only other appropriate response is actually compassion. But how much compassion can we have for a world that's gone mad? You gotta put up some boundaries and start prioritizing yourself enough to start attracting and hanging with the people that you really feel love from and can give and receive love. And I mean, it sounds kind of hokey, but it's actually true. So that's how I'm living. That's what I'm trying to work on right now, is trying to really connect to that energy and these beautiful people in our lives all around us. And by the way, the more you discover your gifts, the more beautiful you become. So it just amplifies. And that is what is going to stop this agenda, this juggernaut, the gears of which are like covered in blood and muck, grinding up literally people's bodies and souls. What's going to actually cause that to stop is us experiencing our true nature, which is beautiful, which does not need to be vaccinated, doesn't need to be masked or controlled. That's just the reality. And that is revolutionary. For you to stand up as a healthy person, talk about an act of defiance and protest and positivity all in one. Just exist as a human being in your true nature. And you, one person, could upend a global agenda. I do believe that. I do think there was something to people like Gandhi or Rosa Parks or whoever. I mean, they're just the historical examples. There's infinitely more examples of anonymous individuals just doing very basic random acts of kindness. That's what got us here. We all have ancestors that sacrificed everything just so that we could be here right now. And it's actually that lack of connection to their ancestors that I think is what is really causing us to be so capturable by this machine. The government being the archetype of that of all others, is that there's some daddy government that cares so much about us that it would imprison us and violate us and do whatever the hell it wants to us, because we're just helpless, children that are constantly needing someone to save us. That's not how it works. I mean, it will work that way unless we realize that we are who confers the government its power. We're the ones who vivify it with life energy. And right now, by the way, the government preys and runs off of fear and anger, cognitive dissonance. It's literally a battery that charges this sucker up. That's why anarchy and volunteerism is such a powerful concept. It's not throwing a brick through freaking Starbucks. It's growing vegetables, raising chickens, and just getting off these devices every once in a while and hanging out with our children and breathing. And that's anarchy. That's the future. Yeah, you guys are great. People hanging with this content, right? Yeah, it is very cool. Yeah, there's great things happening, folks. I happen to live in Miami. I'm very excited about that. We were one of the worst places hit by this agenda. You know, the maskiness here is just on another level. And in just the past month, things have shifted dramatically. DeSantis just overturned any fines for businesses that are not enforcing masks. Yet these businesses are just as traumatized as the people wearing masks. They're just completely thinking they still need to enforce these absurd, anti-scientific, and health-destroying policies. But a ton of people are basically waking up here, and I think a lot of folks are moving here for that reason. And we're in a field for every single person that succeeds in getting around the craziness, standing up for their rights. That helps every other person, and it's what Sheldrake talks about as a morphogenic field. You know, this is absolutely not pseudoscience. It's a basis for all science, is to accept that there's a field, we're a species, and as all of us contribute to making our own individual lives and communities better, the entire thing becomes better. Call it the Maharishi effect, call it whatever you like, but it's actually happening. So we are, I think, moving in a really beautiful direction. So, yeah, see, New York City is probably one of the worst of all places, but whatever the reasons, Cuomo is unraveling. You know, his karma is really coming home to roost. And talk about one of the most weaponized political instruments I've ever witnessed, this man and what he did in New York, and the casualties of his leadership. They're really remarkable. So New York is actually looking like it has a chance now, because at this point, it's clear places like Florida that opened up, we are doing so much better. And even though there's intense pressure to continue to generate the cases, the case demic, and to get the vaccinated rates up. By the way, the vaccines on their very PDF insert and in the clinical trial data cause the symptoms that they're calling COVID. So obviously, the more vaccines, the more the second, third wave will happen, the more they'll blame it on, again, the non-vaccinated. So it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I know so many people who know of people whose parents have had the vaccines and they've had, terrible experiences. So obviously, there's a lot of good stuff there. This worldwide demonstration, I'm not sure about, honestly, because there's a Telegram channel. There's no indication, honestly, who's behind it. And when you look at the worldwide event, it's all English. So if you're Italian or whatever, Spanish, why is there not an organic? What I'm saying is that there have been a lot of events, and I'm not certain how these events will be directed, co-opted. So I'm just saying a grain of salt there. I have yet to see who is really behind this event. And at this point in time, it's very easy to compromise these things. In fact, I posted an article earlier today about CNN already calling it out as QAnon, far right event, which probably isn't true. But what they're going to do is they're going to try to tag these things as such. So just keep that in mind. Be cautious with whatever you participate in, because either way, the way the system works, they're going to try to weaponize, distort it either way. Wow, cool. So anyway, cool to hang with you guys. Like I said, not going to be doing a ton more of these, I don't think. I mean, both our YouTube channels until recently were deactivated for posting certain content. I am creating library content within the Green Men Info membership. That's a very basic membership. It's like 16 cents a day. It's always been that cheap, and very few people actually take advantage of that. But our new iteration is going to have our censored videos within there, which now there's about 5 of them that got our channel, there are strike marks and threatening to delete our channel. And it's where we're at, like going out in the public, quote, public with YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I don't know that it really works anymore, because you can tell as much truth as you want or reference as many facts. And the thing is they're just distorting everything. and they're taking little sound bites out. So I'm going to be doing more behind the walled garden type of stuff. So people who are interested, I'll actually put it out here now. I rarely, if ever, promote this as a way for you to support what I do and what Green Info does, but we are 100% membership supported. There's no primary funders. I took all the advertising off the site, even though a site like ours could generate over $100,000 in ad revenue just by putting in Google AdSense ads. But about, was it 6 years ago, we said, you know what, we can't do it. Just can't do it. So now we have no ads on our site. We have a newsletter list, of course, where people buy occasionally some affiliate product or they attend a free event. And then if a small percentage buy, that's what feeds the revenue we need to keep Green Info going. But I think in the future, people will recognize that this will have a lot more value to them because we can do events that are really more for our community. So there's sort of a little barrier of entry, right? Like the theory or the description out there is if the product is free, then you're the product. So we want to get around or beyond that in the future. We're going to ask for a little bit of a symbolic donation or energy exchange, 16 cents a day, so that you can go ahead and support this resource, which is constantly under attack, and also get access to content that now is really going to be cultivated just for those who really value it. And that's what we want. That also prevents some of the trolling and some of the mainstream reporting. Oh, Sayer's QAnon or Q adjacent because he happens to reference facts that you're not allowed to reference. I mean, that's what's happening today. And that's pretty scary. So again, if you want to join that, otherwise the Telegram group is free, of course. And of course, our newsletter is always free. But the Telegram group is where a lot's going on now because the deboosting of posts is insane. Like again, 500,000 people on Facebook, 13 years to get there. I post something, it reaches 2 people, literally. Like 1 like, 1 share. So writing was on the wall. They're doing us a favor. But Telegram is not like that. You get 100% of your posts. And Telegram eventually might be compromised and might not be worth staying on. That's why Cordal's building out social media platform. And it's going to be radically respectful of your sovereignty, your right to self-custody of your value, your information. That is revolutionary. So technically, the thing I'm most excited about is not even Green Info or any of the other stuff. It's actually Cordal. And I'm excited about it because it is an opportunity for us all to co-create this. Everyone, put in the effort. Learn to download the node. I'd love to see 10,000 nodes. I'd love to see Cordal eclipse Bitcoin and the number of people participating as nodes, which means you're running a copy of the blockchain on your device, because that's symbolic. Symbolic not of the desire to, preserve, maintain, generate wealth just on the basis of money, but it's symbolic of us saying we're done with the co-option. Here's an example, okay? I send an email now, and we have been, deplatformed by MailChimp, for example, CDC Foundation partner. They're literally paying the CDC through their non-profit foundation, so the CDC signed a contract with them, and then they can go ahead through Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and shut us down and claim they're not inhibiting our free speech because they're immune under this act. So that's how it works. The CDC can work with MailChimp and say, anybody who says anything about vaccines, including the fact that we covered up data, whatever, that's anti-vaccine content, that's dangerous, you have to shut us down. That's what they did back in 2019. So what if you take away the need to send an email and you take away the need to have a domain name where I'm sending people to read our information? That's what Cordal does. Cordal gives you your own name registration. It could be whatever it is, Green Info. On the blockchain, it's forever there, can never be taken, it's yours, you own it. And people can go directly to it from their node. So there's no intermediary. It doesn't go to Google servers in Mountain Valley, California, and then bounce back and go to the spam inbox, or people are given warnings on Chrome that Green Info is dangerous, so you can't get that information. Or maybe there's a attack on our server and you can't get access to GreenMed. GreenMed was just down for 2 hours because we had a hardware issue. So these vulnerabilities are eliminated with Web 3.0. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, guys, like you see the writing on the wall. They're deplatforming everyone and they're coming after people. Well, you can't do that with Web 3.0. So that is why I'm so excited by it. So go ahead and do that, because I'm putting a lot of my energy and time and resources into this project. I want people to have access to this. So I'm excited about it, and hope that you join. And yeah, we're all learning how to do this together, guys. So thank you again for participating, and I will see you on Telegram and through the newsletter. All right, thanks so much.